my world needs space. And the most succinctly I could come up with was to say that our world needs space in the same way that ancient Athens needed a navy. Okay, maybe that's not as obvious as I thought it would be. I invoke that because I think of Athens building a navy. When I think of them, I think of the power, the collective power of a big idea. And in modern times, that's typified by President Kennedy, that Ray Johnson mentioned, and his speech about doing what was hard because it was hard. Well, in 483 BC, Athens was facing a situation where they literally were sitting on a mountain of money because the silver mine that they owned had had a really good year. And at the assembly that year, it was assumed that there would be a plan to simply distribute that money to everybody more or less equally. But the great orator Themistocles stood up and he challenged his fellow countrymen in the same way that President Kennedy challenged his. And he said, let's not do that. Instead, let's pool that resource and all of our skill and of all of our talent, and let's do something nobody's ever done before. Let's build the greatest navy the world has ever seen. Let's reach beyond our middle power status and become a great empire through the building of a great navy. Yes, it will take all of that money, and it will also take all of your efforts to build those ships and to be crew on those ships, but that's what we should do, and we should do it together. And they did. And for 200 years, Athens was one of the greatest empires of the ancient world, and if it hadn't been for that, we might not be the civilization that we are today. And I draw a direct line from that moment 2,500 years ago to the moment of President Kennedy's speech and other speeches in modern times. There is a thread, there is a need in human beings to come together and to do something really big. And sometimes there's a need to come together and do something really big, even in a small way. But to come together to reach for a collective goal. And actually, I probably don't have to say that to many of you in this audience. If you have ever tried to put together a space project, and you have herded the cats, and you have chivied, and you have cajoled, and you have convinced, only to find that somehow, at a moment in time, you reach critical mass, and suddenly everybody starts to believe. They start to believe that this can be done, that together you can actually do this thing, whatever it is, and suddenly everybody wants in. Everybody wants to find a way to contribute. And then maybe the project gets going. But at some point, you find yourself in that meeting. The one where you're sitting around the table staring down the barrel of a program ending a test failure. When you can feel the contingency funds slipping away, the launch getting ever closer, and there really doesn't seem to be a way you're going to be ready. When suddenly a bright young voice, and let's face it, it's always bright, it's always young, pipes up from several time zones away, probably, and says, but wait a second, haven't we considered something that nobody considered? And then everybody's silent, not because there's anything wrong. It's because none of the old guys can find anything wrong with it. And yes, it actually might work. And suddenly the team is ablaze with a new hope. Everybody is finding a way that they can contribute. Somebody at the back of the room has found a way to parallel 4 tasks in the critical path, and suddenly you got another 6 weeks, and holy cow, you're going to make it. You're going to make it because everybody worked together. Because everybody pushed themselves farther than they ever would have. And it didn't just you. You just said, to heck with it, I'm going home, this is too hard. But because it was everybody pulling together, you make it. And then one day, you're standing in the dawn light, shoulder to shoulder with hundreds or maybe thousands of people, and you're watching a rocket lift itself above the rising sun on a plume of smoke lit from above by its rocket and from below by the rising sun. And you look around, and you realize not only the hundreds and thousands of hours that went in from your team to build the small piece of whatever instrument or sensor is on that spaceship, but literally the thousands or maybe 10,000s of people who also worked just to get that mission off the ground. And it is a hugely humbling experience. to have put your heart and soul into something and realize that thousands of other human beings put just as much of their heart and soul into that same thing, and you have all achieved it together. This is something that human beings need to feel. This is why our world needs space. Because space, it's not a necessary requirement. You can do this without going to space. People do it all the time. But with the nature of the space business these days, with the challenge that the environment poses, and with the nature of the way international collaboration is going, no one will ever go to space alone, and it will never be easy. It may even be routine, but it will be the kind of routine that requires absolute perfection every time. And because of that, any space project is always going to be the kind of space project that evokes that power to inspire innovation and to inspire collaboration. I'm also not naive. I don't believe that that is a sufficient condition for going to space. We can't go to space just because it makes us feel good. We don't have to. As you're going to hear, you've already heard today, but as you will hear throughout this Congress, there are many excellent reasons to go to space. There are reasons related to the fact that there are things we can do in space and from space we can't do on Earth. There are technological reasons. There are economic and financially good reasons to do things in space that we simply can't do anywhere else. Now, the power of the collective power of the big idea is not a reason on its own to do space, but it is certainly a reason to find other reasons to keep doing space. And for that reason, again, space is something that our world desperately needs. We need its power to convene us, we need its power to inspire us, and we need its power to make us work together constructively in the service of ourselves and our greater civilizations. So, as you attend all of your papers and sessions at this fine Congress that Jeff and Ron and the team have organized for you, I want you to listen. I want you to listen for that little voice inside all of the presentations. The voice of Themistocles, the voice of John F. Kennedy, the voice that taps you on the shoulders and says, hey, see that up there? That big, impossible goal? If we work together, and we work really hard, we can go there. Want to come?